What's up, player? Welcome to Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4, the legal, the loyal, the regal, the royal, Ronin Ralph, your master of ceremonies. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, join the channel for a minimum of 99 cents per month for exclusive, members-only content. Please tell a friend to tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Tonight on Ralph Reads, Volume 4 of the biographic true story of Little Willie the Barber, the Gentleman Pimp, written by Andrew Stonewall Jackson. Let the reading commence. Chapter 9. After reaching the prison, I dug just how huge the joint really was, and you could take it from me. There were indeed close to 6,000 stories in the house of many doors. When I got a quarantine, I found a lot of cats that I knew and had missed seeing on the stem, and many more that I didn't know but who knew me through my brother Willie. And all during my bit, I was tagged as Little Willie the Barber. I was there 9 months, and here are some of the things that happened while doing my bit. I was the first black man that ever worked in the kitchen, and the first black man that ever lived in 15 block with a 24 unlock. 15 block was the hole on base, but I lived upstairs over the hole. The prison was indeed a large playhouse when I got there. A lot of cash was in motion, and any game you wanted to play was there. Many big well-off men were there, and I worked with a gent that owned a large hotel. The prison yard on all holidays was really jumping. Gee, I wish I could tell you about some of the people that I met, but I can't. But believe me, I met some men that were worth millions. And I met a lot of police that were doing time, but where they went after they were there a few days, I swear, I really can't say. But I can say that most of them had to pay rent. I mean rent like you do on a street. Now that really is a bitch. In prison and gotta pay rent. Wow. During my many trips to the Apple, I never once saw my brother. But I read in the prison paper that he was the first man to enter the joint in the year 1945. If you're wondering how I was still in prison in 1945 after telling you I only did 9 months and got busted in 1943, well, I was out on bail for a year. I sent him a care package while he was in quarantine, and the deputy allowed me to visit him. Willie looked the same, but one of his legs had become longer than the other one, and a great deal thinner. When he was released from quarantine, he was put in 12 block, where all the sick men had to stay. I knew he was uptight when I came by one day and asked him if he wanted some nutmeg, and he iced it. A bit later, he was put in the hospital, and because I was his brother, I was allowed to visit with him as often as I wanted to. He ran it down to me that he had returned to Detroit after making all the states and got busted in the valley after a bartender who was also dead called the law. He got 3 to 10 years. I could dig how drugged Willie was because his leg had gone bad on him. He was a nigger that walked fast by nature, a nigger that stayed in the fast flight even when he wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, he was a real speedy guy, and I knew this thing was growing between his thigh and hip bones, which was causing one leg to become longer, and it wasn't as large as his arm. On one of my visits, he talked of killing himself. I did my best to get him to get that kind of thinking out of his mind, and I hate to confess it, but I feel that I failed. He gave me a very touching message to give to his longtime girlfriend, Anna, a girl he loved for a number of years. I told him I'd give it to her as soon as I saw her. The message was so touching that I read it till I was able to recall it word for word. Then I said, "Willie, you too big to be talking about offing yourself, man. Be anything, but please don't be a nut." "I can't help it, Stony," he said. "But man, I can't see me as a nigga that gotta wear a block for a stomp." He reached down and got his shoe and said, "Man, dig this." He held his shoe out for me to see. It was the kind of shoe that people with club feet have to wear. "Ain't that a bitch?" he said. "Me, Willie the Barber, gotta walk the rest of my life on a block like this. Take it easy," I said. "Your step-lad didn't have no leg at all, and a stump so short he couldn't wear his one leg. Baby, he ain't like me. He can live with one leg. Stony, you know he ain't in our kind of life anyway." "Man," I said, "you're Willie the Barber. People all over these United States know you or know of you. What do you think they'll say when the word gets out that you offed yourself? Look at this," he said. "My damn leg ain't as big as my arm." "Willie," I said, "the doctors can start the circulation back into it for you, and it'll be the same as the other one." "Nigga, this is the penitentiary. These beasts ain't got no idea how to help a man get rid of the claps. Man, you know what's happening, so come off it." At that moment, the hack mentioned for me to leave, so I told Willie I had to split. "And Willie," I said, "if you rob this world of the great Willie the Barber, nigga, I'll never forgive you. So stick and stay old, dude. I'll dig you tomorrow." And I split. On my way out, I noticed the hack didn't lock his cell door. And I knew when a man's cell wasn't locked, it meant there was nothing could be done to save the man in the cell, and all hope had been given up on him. I never asked the doctor if he had something that was killing him. I guess I really didn't want to know about it. I sat down that night and wrote my sister. I told her to come up and see Willie as soon as she could, because I felt he was going to leave us. Within a week, she was up to see him and had to be taken inside the walls to the hospital, and this time it was no fix. It was indeed a sick visit. When she was through seeing Willie, she had me called out for a visit with me. When I reached the visiting room and saw who it was, I started to turn around and walk out. She nor anyone else in my family have ever come to see me when I was in jail. I knew she was visiting me only because she was at the prison to see Willie. And I also knew if I turned down a visit from my family, the parole board wouldn't like it. So I had to visit just because of that reason, and I also could learn what Willie had to say. After I sat down, I said, "Well, sis, what did Willie have to say?"
"Everything he said during my visit with him,"
she said.
"alluded to him not caring if he lived or not."
"Yeah," I said. "I know. Did you talk to any of the doctors about him?"
"Yes, I did,"
she said.
"and one of them told me he had a lung that was just about gone, and that's why they feel he's going to die."
"Well, it seems like we're going to lose old Willie, doesn't it?"
"Stonewall, I can't stop the doctors from thinking like they do, but I want you to stop talking like that. He just can't die."
"Bullshit. Sis, we both know you don't care one way or another what happens to Willie or me."
"Boy,"
she said.
"how can you think a thing like that?"
"Oh, sis, come off it. You know I've been in jail a number of times, and now I'm in prison, and you nor anyone of the family has never come to see if there was anything you could do for me. One of the times I was in jail was just a few steps from where the old lady and the kids lived, And damn it, not one of them came to see me. Sis, the only reason you're sitting there right now is because our brother is uptight, and you came to see about him. 9 times out of 10, you would have felt real shitty if you hadn't called me out. So let's stop bullshitting each other. Let's cut this visit short. I'll hip you my mail on how Willie's doing. My sister started to say something, but I motioned for the hack, letting him know our visit was over, and he let me out. Then he let her out. About a week after that, a friend that worked in the hospital told me in the breakfast line that my brother had just died a few hours ago. I sat my tray down and asked one of the guards if I could go to the hospital and see if it was my brother that passed that morning. He said I could, so I split. When I reached the hospital, they were taking a body off the elevator, all covered up. I asked the fellow to drop the sheet so I could dig the face. He turned the sheet back, and sure enough, it was Willie. I wired my folks, and they sent for the body. I made arrangements to be taken to the funeral. I found the right hack to take me as far as hacks are concerned. The day came for me to leave for Detroit. I was dressed out in a truly bold front, and the information desk gave the hack my detail that concerned the way I was to be taken, and it read, "Cuffed all the way." Like I said, the prison was a real playhouse, and my watch was in pawn. I got it out, and I was now ready for the trip home. In 1945, trains ran to Detroit from Jackson. They now, however, don't make the run. After the train pulled off, the hack said,
"Well, Stonewall, if I remove these cuffs, will you be cool and not give me a hard time?"
"Oh, man," I said. "Come on and off the cuffs. You know I ain't got but 4 months to freedom the right way." He, like I thought, took 'em off when we reached Detroit. After getting off the train, we copped a cab to take us to the church. And when I entered the church, I saw members of my family that I hadn't seen before. My aunt, who was my dad's sister, put an embrace on me that felt like a bear hug and damn near took my breath. I motioned to some of my folks to come set me free, and after they had freed me, I looked at all my family sitting in church with their crocodile tears. The only tears that were for real were my aunt's. Yup. Hers were in no way crocodile. She was as legal as today. Bullshit grief, I thought to myself. Every one of these black-ass phony bullshit niggas could be stars in Hollywood, sitting around like they really lost something that was dear to them. I planned right then that I was going to beat as many of these assholes as I could. After the service was over, we all went to the cemetery, and while we all stood around the grave, I asked one of my cousins for a few bucks. She didn't hesitate to fulfill my pitiful request. She opened her purse and came out with her bankroll and was about to peel off a few bucks to give me some butts, and I grabbed it all out of her mitt. She reached at my hand to take it back, and I shook her up by saying, "Watch it, cuz. The man might think you're giving me a gun." Wow, did this bitch forget about the chips? She stood like a frozen mummy. It was clean, and I learned my M.O. was righteous, so I did the same thing to damn near all of them. Well, Willie was laid to rest, and when we split the cemetery, I had close to 4 bills. After dropping the last of the family off, I hired the family car to take me to a few places before we went back to the joint. I wanted to go by a bar that my other brother managed before he died, which was September 13th, 1971. In the family car with us was Ruth, who looked real sickly, and I felt she was up pretty tight. My man Chuck looked like he was still batting 1,000. A fine black bitch, who I'll call Diane, tightened the hack sex life out, and I enjoyed all of Ruth. I had begged for a few more dollars, and I had copped some pop from a pal at the bar. All the fellows knew I was coming home that day, so they had everything ready and waiting. While I was at the bar drinking, the hack moved in and said,
"Stonewall, it's getting close to our time."
So I said so long to all the fellows, then me and the hack set out for the prison. The family car took us to the station. Once we were on the train, I went to the men's room and pushed the heroin in my ass, but I had to blow the cocaine because it couldn't stand the heat of my body. Since I had the boy in a balloon, I wasn't worried about it. I had saved my hanky that I wiped Rufe's ass out with after we had our taste of sex, because I had a real freak of a nigga that I was gonna sell a smell of it to after I got back in the joint. I also pushed a pot in my ass that was in another balloon. The cocaine was hitting me real fast when I sat down next to the hack. I pulled out my chips and counted him $30 for him to put in his kick, and I gave him 2 bills to put in my account and 2 bills to give me later in the joint. Now that my business was in order, I sat back and gave some thought to the fact that my brother Willie was dead. I thought of the times me and him did some money making together. The one time that amazed me most was the day we were downtown in Detroit looking for something to steal. We were on Gratiot and Broadway when we dug a short that was filled with all kinds of bags. There was a policeman standing in the center of the intersection directing traffic, and as good a thief as Willie was, I knew he didn't plan to hit the car right there. However, he told me to walk to the corner and wait for him. He should be driving by to pick me up 10 minutes after he talks with the law. "Yeah," he said. "If everything turns out like I hope, I should be by to get you, so wait." We both dug the twisters in the car, but to break into it where it was parked was damn near impossible. Not just because the policeman was there, but more so because of the many folks that were walking to and from different parts of downtown Detroit. I didn't know what he had in mind, but I did know he knew just what he was doing, so I went to the edge and waited for him. From the edge where I was standing, I saw Willie approach the officer. They rapped a few minutes, and then the officer walked with Willie to where the car was. The next thing I saw was the officer help my brother spring the vent window, then Willie got in the car. He said a few words to the officer from the car window and drove down to pick me up. Believe it or not, Willie told the policeman that he had locked his keys in the car and asked him to help him since he had those thick gloves on. Yeah, Willie was a real motherfucker. He knew what he was doing, and he did it well. He was the reason that I learned a great deal. From my brother, I learned about life, I learned about people, and so what I learned is to place no faith in tomorrow. So I say to you, the clock of my life may then be still. Yeah, my dear reader, that's just what I learned from the passing of my dearest and most worthy brother, Willie the Barber. When I was back inside the prison, the hack gave me my 2 bills, which made me have an even grand. I had left 8 bills with a pal before I split. Time moved right along. I was doing good with my schoolwork, and Rufe was real righteous with my bread. Then one day I got a letter from my man Chuck, and in it were these words.
"Well, guy, your first pluck passed the first of the week. It was TB. That took her out."
This was a shock to me, even though she did look a bit tired when I was home to bury Willie. Still, I made a few plans that concerned her and me, and not long after that, my stepdad died. This meant that 1945 had been a cruel year for me, and I'd have to make it from the jump or less. Soon after that, everything changed, and it got tight like that. A little later on, my time was up, and I split. But as far as prisons go, Jackson was a real sweetheart to do your bit. I was called and dressed out, given $30 of my money, and told I could pick up the balance from my parole officer when I reached Detroit. I, along with 10 other men that were splitting the scene that day, were taken to the bus station. When the bus for Detroit came, only 5 of us got on it, which meant the others were going elsewhere in Michigan. Things sure looked good to me as the bus rolled on toward the Motor City. When the bus stopped in Ann Arbor, one of the fellows that left with me moved into me and said,
"Stony, give me some bread on a bottle. I'll cop while we're here and we can get cool."
I did. He did. We did. Now with the taste in me, I was really feeling swell all the way to my town. When the bus pulled into the station on Washington Boulevard, I walked into the drugstore to cop some straights, and while the girl was getting the smokes, I enjoyed the sound of female voices and the smell of perfume their bodies were throwing off. When I stepped out on Washington Boulevard and looked at all the stores that I once got my things from, it was then that I found getting out of prison gave as much of a thrill as cocaine and spending money did. Yeah, getting out of the joint gives you a kick that's far beyond expression. I was on E as far as having long bread was concerned. I had a little over $1,000 that I'd managed to leave the joint with, but had only butts of it on me. The bigger part of it had to go to my P.O. before I could get it. I had 6 months to do on paper, so I made my arrival report and got a blow-by-blow of the do's and don'ts ran down to me, which meant nothing to me at all. After the blow-by-blow, I stepped out of the Cadillac Square building, feeling swell. I was told by my P.O. that my money would be in from the joint within the week, so this meant I'd have my grand when I knew my pals would have something going for me when I saw them. Since I wasn't gone long enough for the fashions to change, and I still had all my things at my mother's home, I was blessed. I still had fronts I had never had altered, coats and shirts that I never had on. So as far as having things to wear was concerned, I was in top-notch shape. Yup, I was in as good a fix then as I was when I split the scene. My only hang-up was the fact that I had lost root, and this meant I was now in the streets, whoreless, and God knows something had to be done about that, and done in a hurry. And once you get a taste of getting it off the dresser, like I had done for so long, you know that getting it off the dresser was indeed the righteous way of life. And I felt at that time that it was my way of life till the lights of life went out. I went by the old ladies and got clean and gave her a few dollars, kissed her, and split. I hit the old edge and saw a lot of my old pals, who all gave me the usual bullshit niggas give a guy when he's just out of the house of wax. Everyone told me to get my desire from the bar, and most of them told me how sorry they were about me losing root and my brother. All in all, the edge was still a major league whore set. One thing had changed. The Greek no longer owned that hat shop. It was now owned by a one-time pimp, but it had the same name. It moved to the west side, and the one-time pimp is now dead, and may God have mercy on his soul. I had been in the bar drinking with the mob for damn near 2 hours, and I was damn near drunk when I split. I walked 3 blocks out Napoleon to my man's pad, and when I got there, his mother let me in and gave me her warmest greetings and then told me Chuck was in the bed. I entered the bedroom and slapped him on his ass as hard as I could. He turned over and reached for his pistol at the same time.
"Ice it,"
I said.
"It's I, your guy, Gemini."
He forgot about the gun and gave me one of those warm, true pal greetings, really from the heart. Not one like everybody else, but the embrace of a real friend. After the well wishes were over, we rapped, we smoked, and we took a toot of boy and girl. At the time, tooting the boy along with the girl was called Pineapple. Chuck had the same two girls, but had a few hits and misses while I was away. He told me some of the misses he had was because of his taking good care of Ruth while I was away. It seems some of his girls just didn't understand his loyalty to me. And believe it or not, he wasn't bitter or grim about it. He was just a real righteous nigga. After he'd given me a blow-by-blow of how life had been with him since I'd been away, I said, "Say, old dude, where are the good girls gigging now?"
Daddy,
He said,
a lot of prize ribs are working the edge of Columbia and Brush. Puppy Love is behind the bar. Her dad owns the place.
"Chuck," I said, "is there any fair game on the edge or anywhere in the city?"
Stony, my man, there are herds of them all over the town.
"Then, partner," I said, "get your black ass out of bed and let's do a little stampeding on the herd. We might just be able to cut out a few head. I guess you know I'm starved, damn near to death for a bitch, in far more ways than one." He got up, dressed. We took a few more toots of Christine and Henry, Pineapple, and Split. He was still on wheels, but this was December of 1945, and he was riding in his 1942 wheel. As you know, because of the war years, they stopped making cars in 1942 and didn't make any more till 1946, so my guy was as up-to-date as anyone else. While we were looking the horse spots over, we ran into an old fuck buddy of mine. We pulled up on her, and after a few minutes of rapping, she slid her big, tasty ass in the car. She rode with us till we covered the rest of the bars, and then the toots were wearing off, and I was starting to suffer the feeling one has when cocaine wears off. If you've ever used cocaine, you know what I mean. And it was then that I was cracked on Chuck. "Baby," I said, "the cocaine has split on me, and I'm up kinda tight. Baby boy, let's go back to your pad and get some boy. I gotta shake this fucking feeling." Before he could answer, the fuck pal of mine said she had some in her pad, and she also said it was the bomb. Chuck drove by her pad, and the three of us got out and went in. After I had the fix of boy, it caused me to want to get my nuts out of pawn. And since I knew Chuck was beat for DOS, I told him I was gonna lay and free my nuts from the pressure they were under. He said he could dig it and told me to stop by his pad after I make a 3-base hit. After that crack, Chuck left and me and the sex pot got right to it. I had a good year's run without real sex, plus the horse gave me a prize hard for a nigga to have when he's about to bust a bitch out. And God knows this was indeed a choice black bitch that knew the right way of putting that good tight pussy on a nigga. After we got started with our sex insanity, it took but a few seconds for me to register from her soft, tender chops, embracing my hard and aching bone. I had the arresting desire to suck her black tight ass, but the codes of the game wouldn't allow it. So I straight fucked her 3 times, and she took her one drink from my big black dick. When the party was over, she said,
"Stony, honey, I sure wish I could afford you. Damn, but you know how to put dick to a bitch. I ain't jiving. You always have been hit to where it's at, Stony Daddy. I swear, you truly know what's happening."
She went on to say,
"Maybe one of these days I'll get you."
She was saying all that between kisses on my hard, big, black bone. If a bitch ever made love to a nigga's dick by hugging, kissing, and placing it in her jib, this one did. Then as she pulled it out of her mouth and looked up at me, I said, "Why sweat it? The way things been going between us for the past years, you been getting this treat steak for nothing."
"Yeah, I know, but just how often is that? Why, hell, We only fuck when we run into each other, and then you gotta be in the mood for it.
Chapter 10.
Like it is right now, just out of the joint and your nuts feel like sandbags. Then I'm the girl, Stony.
She said.
One of these days, I'm gonna get off stuff, and I'll be able to have you for myself as my man. And Stony, believe me, I'm gonna get Joe Chink off my back. God knows I am, and as you say, that ain't no stage jock.
You know what, baby? I said. A guy could take that as a real big thing. But I'll just say thanks, and I wish you all the luck in the world, 'cause mama, that monkey could very well turn out to be a ape. We blowed some more boy. I sucked her tongue and left. I patted her ass and left for the edge that Chuck had told me about. It was time for me to get another good catch, and I found this edge full of fine whores. I stood in the corner and had the chance to dig 'em all as they beat a path from one bar to the other. Although the bars were in the center of the ghetto, the ribs that worked them looked like starlets, well-dressed, clean-looking, and smelled like Paris. Lucked with them, all with the hope of a catch. Then one night, while I was in the bar talking to my puppy love, a young Mexican boy came in bleeding from his mouth. I took him to the men's room and tried to help him as much as I could. He told me some Mexicans had robbed and stomped him. I went to the bar and got some towels to wipe off the blood that had covered his face. On my way back to him, a bitch that I'd been fucking with stopped me and said,
Is he alright?
I told her to call the police so he could get to the hospital. She did. They came. He went. Now back at the bar, where she was sitting, sipping, and shucking, she said,
It was nice of you to help the boy. You know, when I first saw you, I didn't think you had any heart at all, but your act of warm concern proved me to be wrong.
Say, girlfriend, I said, you mean you had that kind of feeling about me without even knowing me? Gee, I thought I was a fair-looking cat myself.
Oh, you are?
She said.
But in a sinister sort of way.
Say, I said. What do you say we introduce ourselves? My name is Stonewall. Friends call me Stony, and I've been told I'm God's gift to all females.
Yeah?
She said.
I bet you are. Now, if God's gift doesn't mind, I'd like to buy you a drink. And my name is Marie.
Well, Marie, you buy me a taste as righteous, and perhaps I'll be able to hip you to something else you can buy me. My man owned a hotel that was just a few feet from the bars where these righteous mud kickers did their gig. So if I got lucky and ripped off any of these gold mines that did their thing on this edge, I'd be a top-notch fix. It never has mattered to me just what kind of girl I copped, as long as I copped one. She could be blue, green, yellow, or polka dot. I know monkey man makes monkey woman, and I know I'm far from being a monkey man. And I also knew a cat ends up like he starts out, and my start was gonna be, sell that dick. If a bitch was getting meatball bread when I got her, I changed that by changing the spot where she was working, and as you read this book, you'll learn that every bitch I've had in my life has been a true money getter. And although I have had a habit close to 30 years, I never had but one girl that was my woman that used drugs. And this girl was the only one that has ever seen me take a fix. And if you think that was easy, try it yourself. Also, you will see where I've lost two top-notch girls because so-called nigger friends told them that I was a dope fiend. And at the same time, I swear I wasn't. I was, however, a guy that had an insane cocaine yen. And that, my dear reader, is far worse than a horse habit because it costs 10 times as much bread. Well, that was the start of Marie and I. And as time passed, I found out that Marie wasn't kosher for a nigga that wanted to pimp in life. Don't misunderstand me. Marie was a whore, but she was then and still is now a true bullshit whore. Yeah, Marie, as pretty as she is, was a fake, a fairy tale of a whore, if there ever was one. She's a good girl for a meatball pimp to have. She could keep him with a few bucks in his kick, keep him clean, keep him with a bed to rest his head and food to eat. But the bitch just wasn't a whore in the full sense of the word. You couldn't keep your things in the pad, and if you did, you had to keep them out of eye shot of her tricks. This bitch had never had a trick that was a trick. Every damn one of them was her sweetheart. And you had to play hide and seek. God knows was a bring down to me and to the game. During the time I had her, I spent my every moment looking for a way to get out from under this bogue, bullshit way of life. Believe me, it's a bitch not to be able to go home when you want to. Or if you're home relaxing and get a phone call from your rib and she says,
"Get ready to get up. Johnny is coming by to spend a few hours."
Hell, we had a 4-room house. Why did Johnny have to have the whole damn place? Take it from me, to have Marie for your woman was a simp's life, not a pimp's life. And my dear reader, I thought of myself as a stomped-down pimp. Everyone thought Marie was a top-notch girl, but the only reason I kept her was to keep my name in the game, which is important, because it helps you to have a better chance to pluck. No doubt about it, Marie was catching them every night, even if her way of doing it was bogue. You see, getting your first girl is the hardest, and once you've done that, the rest is easy. Having Marie caused me to have one very important thing going for me. Since she was so choice, it kept my name and me in striking shape to pluck a bitch every day of the week. And who knows, she could be worthy and well-founded. Time passed, and one warm day, I woke up feeling swell. I got dressed in a new white suit, white Charlie Chan Panama, and a pretty orange sports shirt. I stopped by my man's room and picked up a Zulu stick of boo, and then I stepped out in front of the hotel to smoke and ready myself up to peck. While standing at the rear of the hotel taking long pulls on the Zulu, a car pulled up with New York tags on it. It was a cat that I seen before when he came to Detroit. He was a guy that kept a lot of good girls, not because he was a hell of a pimp, but more so because he kept fine apartments for the girls he had. This time it looked like he was gonna lay a while, because he had 3 Spanish-speaking girls with him. When the car stopped in front of me, I said, "Hi, guy, you're back. And this time it looks as though you plan to stick and stay."
"Hi, Stony,"
he said.
"Yeah, I'm back. Come on and give me a hand with these bags."
"Hold on, old dude," I said. "Don't do that to me. This is a hotel. They got bellboys for that kind of shit." He got out of the car and went to get a bellboy. I leaned over and looked into the car. The girl that sat next to him asked me for a pull of the Zulu that I was smoking. I gave it to her and said, "Sure, love. My name's Stonewall, and I never seen 3 gems like this before." The girl that I'd given the boo to said,
"Thanks. My name is Kareem."
And she introduced the other 2 girls as Carmen and Lupe. I knew right then that Kareem was going to be mine from the way she looked at me. It was odd to me then, but later in life, I came to find this kind of girl was no way out thing. If you stood and just looked at me, you would have taken them for any other nigga that you happened to meet on the street. They were as black as any Negro you ever seen, and yet these black girls couldn't speak anything but Spanish. If you ever lived in New York City, you see them standing on street corners looking like a bunch of black nappy-head niggas. But when you spoke to any of them, you found they were from another world. Yeah, she looked at me like I was duck under glass, and I hawked her likewise. The 3 of them were all Cuban, and the 3 of them were dreams, a treat for any guy. I dug the cat that came out of the hotel with a bellboy and began to unload the bags. My man that owned the hotel was in the office, and he was hip to me and liked my hungry desire to be a pimp. I went to the desk with the cat from the apple and told my man, "These are friends of mine from New York. Do the best you can for them." Corrie was the first one to get her rooms. And Ted, yeah, I'll call him Ted, he was somewhere in the hotel sitting the other two girls down. I was in the room with Corrie, the treat of the three. As she was getting herself straightened out, I said, "What caused you to leave the apple?"
To tell you the truth,
She said,
it was the only way we could leave Ted.
"What do you mean?"
I mean, we all want to leave Ted, and since he was taking a break from his cab business in New York, we had him bring us here to work. We knew he'd have to return to the apple to check out his cab business, and when he goes, so do we, but in another way.
"How long do you think it'll be before he leaves for the apple?" I asked.
I hope it'll be within the next 3 weeks.
She said, 3 weeks? Baby, that's a long damn time to wait for freedom. You know what, Corrie? You can shake him now if you wanna, and when I say now, baby, I mean now.
Leave now?
She said.
Nah, that's impossible. He'll kill us.
Nah, baby. He can't harm you if you go at it right.
What do you mean, go at it right?
Look, Corrie, all you gotta do is tell me right now that you wanna be my girl and be willing to tell him the same thing. And I'll make book on it that I'll take care of all the details thereafter. Nothing will harm you.
Stonewall?
She said.
When I first saw you standing up in the street smoking and looking so good in this white outfit, I said to myself that you had to be my man. Stony, you look so good to me. So good.
Then that's that, I said. We feel the same about each other. All you gotta do now is hip Ted to how you feel. Well, we rapped a while about it, and after about 20 minutes, I got her to forget her fear. And once I told her that no man hits my girl without killing me, she said she'd do it. With those words fresh in my mind, I went to my room and got the same pistol that my brother had pulled on Dickie close to 10 years ago and returned to the room before Ted got back. Corrie and me waited for him to show. You see, by the codes of the game, I was 100% wrong in fronting my life off for a girl that hadn't given me a dime. But from the looks of her and the spots I could get for her to work, I felt sure the fox would be worth the chase, and most important of all, if things worked out right, I'd be able to split from the fairy tale I've been putting up with. If Marie had been a real whore, I'd have hooked her up with what I had in store for Corrie. But like I said, Marie was a fake, and nothing could be done about it. My man Chuck had her for a minute, and he too found her to be a hard nut to crack. The one thing I think she'd have been great at was being some guy's wife. When Ted came in the room, I said, "Hold it right there, Ted. We gotta reach an adult point of understandable contact with each other."
So?
He said.
We got something to understand. Why must I have to stand right here to understand it?
Well, Ted, I'd like to have you right where you are, just in case you got a lot of fool in you and won't accept what has happened.
Okay, man.
He said.
Run it, whatever it is.
Ted, baby, I said. You showed in town a little while ago with 3 girls. Now you got 2. Corrie here has said she wants me for her man. And as you know, I'd be a damn fool not to accept her. Ted, she's gonna tell you the same thing, and when she does, I want you to keep in mind that she is my girl now. And baby, I'm like you or any other nigga. I can't go for anybody punching on my girl. With that fresh in your mind, Corrie is gonna pull your coat. Then Corrie, with fear in her heart, said,
Ted, there's nothing more I can add. What he just told you is fact, and I am his girl.
Ted didn't see the pistol that I had, but I'm sure he felt I was dressed. After she had hipped him, I said, "Now, the understanding has been reached. We can act like 2 damn fools and die about it, or we can act like 2 adult men that know how this game is and part as friends. The move is yours, Ted." He looked at me, and he looked at her for what seemed like hours, and he surprised me. I thought there was going to be a smell of gun smoke, but Ted was a man. He was drugged, but he accepted it like a trooper. Since I learned from my brother that day in Dickie's room not to relax around any guy that I had trouble with, and since I didn't know just what was going around in his head, Ted was watched every second. I told him he could get his bread back from the room because I wasn't going to move her to another spot. We went back to the desk together. He went to get his bread back, and I went to set Corrie down in another room, and all the time we were there, I was hawking Ted like a cat hawks a mouse. And if he had made any out-of-the-way move, I'd have shot him right there. Since Ted only had to pick up his chips, he was taken care of first, and then my man who was behind the desk said,
"Do you want the room on the same floor, Stony?"
"Sounds like a good idea," I said. And as he was putting the room number on the slip, he looked up at me and said,
"Stony, you just took some money out of that fellow's life, so watch yourself."
"Thanks, pal, but you're wrong when you said I just took money out of his life. The girl was gonna pull up anyway. I only accepted her. You know, Gus, I heard some say they stole a girl from someone, but I know better. No man can steal a girl from someone else. The girl has got to be ready to split herself. And Gus, when she is ready to pull up, nothing in the world can stop her. Nothing. Just remember some of the things I told you up in the joint and give thanks to God that you don't have to live as I do."
"Yeah, I can recall. I can recall everything. But you watch yourself anyway."
"Thanks, Gus. Thanks a lot." After I checked Corrie in a suite of rooms just 2 doors from Marie, I found the fox was well worth the chase. I hadn't fronted my life for nothing. Corrie gave me 6 bills that she had for escape bread. Oh Lord, my God, was I happy and how everything was shaping up for me now. I could stop being a big-time simp and start being a first-class pimp. Marie got the wire about my new girl before I had a change to hip her. I placed Corrie on the same edge where Marie was working. It was Corrie that turned out to be the busy girl of the edge. Marie did everything she could to keep the pace with Corrie, but it goes back to that old saying, "You can't take a jackass and make a racehorse out of him." And that's just what the case was. Corrie was just a born mud kicker in every detail, and Marie was as I said. She was just a good sweetheart for some trick. There wasn't a bitch on the edge that was as busy as she was, and I had the bankroll to prove it. She was hunched to everything about the ways of men, and as far as she was concerned, a trick was nothing more than a trick, and any nigga that has a girl in the streets that's catching them gotta truly care for a girl like that. I felt deep down in my heart that I could now sit back, relax, and enjoy the silky life, and get my family of 4 girls in order. I've never wanted more than 4 girls. I felt that any more than 4 would be a crap in my style. It would just keep me too busy, and I wouldn't have the time to be free. That is, unless I had a top-notch bottom girl to check the traps for me. Now that you know the name, you will get to know some game on Ralph Reads. I would like, or rather love, to thank you, queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. If you would like to leave a small donation or connect with me on social media, go to www.solo.to/RGMC2407. Go to YouTube, PayPal, Cash App, X, IG, Threads, Facebook group, or send an email to the Gmail at RGMC2407. Follow the Art of Bounce podcast via its own YouTube channel or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or Apple, just to name a few. And the Art of Bounce is its own YouTube channel, if that's what you prefer. Again, tell a friend to tell a friend. Tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you and I love you like cooked food. I will see you folks for the next edition of this Andrew Stonewall Jackson miniseries on Ralph Reads. This is coming straight off the head. If you woke up today, be glad you're not dead.
Stay tuned for more audio readings of Rising Death by Ralph Garcia and the Ronin Network. Get turned up with Turn. Check us out.
The United Ronin Networks and Phenomenal Books presents the audio reading